I would like now to give the floor to Ken Irvine. Ken?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just negotiating the complexity of pressing a button. So thanks, everybody. I'm sorry I don't have the beautiful backdrop, because when I put the backdrop on, it looks like I'd come down from the alien universe. So we thought that would scare everybody away. I want to just pose a couple of questions. We have about 15 minutes. And so I want to just pose some questions about nature-based solutions. And we're not going to have a lot of time, or perhaps, if I'm being straightforward, any time to talk about them. But Anam, can you share those questions on the screen, and then that will make life easier?
Yes, so they have been shared on the screen, and I think maybe the host, so maybe Constantina can see the poll results. She's nodding her head.
I only see the questions, not.
Yes.
Does everybody see the questions?
Yeah, unless we.
Can we not just share the screen and show the questions on the screen?
We could. Just give me a minute to.
Or put them into the chat.
Yeah, I'm just gonna quickly share my screen.
That's the best thing. Questions appeared. Kate, they appeared and they disappeared, or they're still there?
They're still there if you click on polls, I think.
Polls, right. Okay, that's what I need to do. So they're in the click on polls.
Can you see?
Yeah, I see polls here. Okay, so excellent. So these questions were some questions we thought about as being sort of interesting for people, because you've heard some expressions of interest and expressions of experience, but we are quite keen to see also what you have experienced as the audience here. And so I wonder whether we can send these questions around for people to share afterwards, Anam, and then they can answer online. Is that possible? Do we have the technology for that?
Yeah, so the polls are in, and people are seeing them and are answering the questions.
Perfect.
Once I end the poll is when maybe we'll be able to see all of the responses that are there.
Okay, so and will this poll be available afterwards?
We can make it available afterwards to everybody if we would like.
So why don't we do that? And that's a sort of a nice follow-up to the webinar, and gives people an opportunity to share their experiences. But I would like to just discuss two things really. One is with the panel have come with a whole variety of their experiences, very different. And I think it's clear that there are many different ways that we can approach nature-based solutions in lakes, involving all sorts of issues. And as it's clearly pointed out, it doesn't involve just technical issues, it also involves communities. So I wanted just to ask, if I might, Tom, one question myself, and maybe stimulate any further questions from the audience. And that is I was fascinated that in Lake Vesiavi, that you had 50% of the funding from the citizens effectively. And I would like Tom to say something to help the audience who are participating. What do you think are the key enabling environment? What does it take? And I know this also, Lawrence has experience also in India with something similar. What does it take to mobilize the citizens to participate in lake protection and lake restoration, rather than relying on usually underfunded government agencies? So if you don't mind, Tom, I'd throw that ball at you.
Yes, thanks, Ken. Of course, that's a great question, and it has been essential in the improvements that have been seen in Vesiavi, has been the engagement of lots of stakeholders, including the general public. Now, in the case of Lahti, I would say that for the average citizen, it's very often a motivation that's related to a topic that came up also in Lawrence's talk, that is the kind of wider benefits of being immersed in high quality natural environment. So you're talking about a city on the shore of a potentially very beautiful lake that was in the past in very good condition, and it has been polluted by human activities. And everybody walking down the shoreline in Lahti in the 1970s and 1980s was aware of this. And many people were wanting to use the lake for recreational purposes, as well as the commercial purposes of the lake. So the fisheries of the lake, wanting to eat the fish from the lake, knowing that they will be in good condition without too many toxic pollutants in the fish, knowing that the lake water quality is good enough to go swimming, even just to walk along the lake shore without having the smells coming from having the algal blooms and so on. So this kind of immersing yourself in a high quality natural environment for an average citizen would be a strong motivation, and that definitely happened, that people got behind the restoration actions for those reasons. But there were also plenty of let's say large interest groups within the society, including commercial interests, that obviously the Lahti fisheries was an important one, that this is something that is sustaining a large sector of the economy. So there are many reasons why citizens and stakeholder groups outside of local government would be interested to make a push for this.
Thank you very much. And then just on that note, we'll continue. And Lawrence, do you want to say something about what you've experienced in the Indian situation? And if there's any colleagues online from India, then maybe you can also chip in with a message, or even put your hand up and we can give you the floor for 2 minutes.
Yeah, if Priyanka's on, I know Sumita's here. So Sumita, I don't know if you want to do something about, say something about why some of the Lake Friends groups were established in Bangalore, and what the stimulation for that was. My thoughts were a sort of a lack of, or too complex governance, so that actually but Sumita knows best. She's doing her PhD on this topic.
Okay, then can we give Sumita the floor, if you don't mind? Sumita, we put you on the spot, introduce you to the world. So maybe you have a comment on what makes it work.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we hear you well.
Firstly, thank you to the World Water Quality Alliance for sharing the link to this presentation. And thank you for putting me in a spot. So mirroring what Lawrence just mentioned, yes, a complex governance system is an issue. Apart from that, I think there is the matter to address about how different stakeholders use the lakes differently. So how do we address those differences, and how does that reflect in terms of lake water quality? Because a lot of the users are not directly linked to the lakes. For example, most of the lakes within an urban city won't be used for swimming or contact use purposes. So there is lack of interest or investment towards having the need to manage the water quality, say, beyond the incidences where there is foul smell or there are fish kill events. So probably finding uses which link back to the quality of the water would be a starting point. And overall, maybe just trying to explore and see where the friction points are and where are the overlaps which could benefit in directing policy towards sort of managing the lakes, and also sort of understanding that targets are fluid and not concrete and then sort of having that conversation with all stakeholders, be it government agencies, be it citizens groups, to understand that if we don't meet the target within the next 6 months or a year, that's not necessarily a failure. It's more of a chance of revision of what we want and how to achieve it.
So Samita, would you say then it's all about the process of going in the right direction rather than having to meet targets?
Definitely, I feel that is a very strong aspect, that a lot of times we run towards the end line as opposed to seeing the route that we take. So again, sort of managing expectations becomes important, so that we don't just implement the fastest solution, which need not be the most sustainable one.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm going to then put Will on the spot.
Thank you.
If that's okay. Thank you, Samita. So Will, the question I have for you based on what we've just heard is you made some important statements about the Haber-Bosch process and the fact that only half of us would be here without that process. And we can have a long discussion about that, I'm sure. And you also said a consequence was water pollution, which is sort of, in some ways, it's saying it's the cost of development in a way, if I can be a bit controversial. But where do you think the trade-offs are, Will? I mean, in terms of effective trade-offs, we all want good water quality. And in fact, there are many places where there are thresholds which are defined as good or not, such as in Europe. But how good is good enough? And how does this whole thing fit into the nature-based solutions thing? So how good is good enough, Will?
How good in terms of how good is water quality? Where water quality?
So we're talking about lakes, and we're talking about, you know, the management of lakes, and we all know the challenges, because we wouldn't be in this webinar if there weren't some big challenges. But how good is good enough? I mean, we've seen some nice examples of, you know, buffer strips, etc., which have variable success rates across the world. But just in your opinion, do we, you know, how are targets, how do targets connect with what is acceptable? I mean, do we accept the fact that lakes will not be in high quality condition, or do we dig our heels in and say we need to ensure that they are, given your presentation and the importance of nitrogen and nutrients for you know, agriculture?
So I'm going to give you a vague answer, but because it's an impossible question to answer. I think it's completely subjective, Ken, because it depends where your lake is and who's being served by your lake. So if you have, you know, a lake population in a very developed country where they have a water system that's being supplied through treatment, and, you know, they have access to, I don't know, aquaculture on land and food being feeded, and they don't mind having a slightly boggy looking lake sometimes the years, then maybe water quality is less important. If it's somewhere where you've got a community that rely directly on the lake for you know, drinking water and cleaning and subsistence, I would argue that maybe that's a more important place to focus on. But again, then you've got the whole thing where, you know, where do you balance your priorities? Is it food security? Is it water security? I'd argue they're highly related, depending where you go in the world, where people get most of their protein from, whether it's agriculture or livestock. I can't answer it because it's a really difficult question to answer. Of course. I certainly think the Water Framework Directive sets some really strong levels, which I don't know whether, I mean, people on the call like Lawrence would be able to answer this better, but I don't think we've managed to achieve that many of them, certainly for phosphorus and nitrogen. I mean, the challenge with nitrogen is that the focus on nitrogen is more atmospheric pollution than the water quality, which makes sense. But then, you know, phosphorus is more of a water issue, I would argue, than nitrogen. But then you talk to other colleagues and they say, well, we're reducing phosphorus down in, you know, middle parts of Africa, and actually the problem is more to do with nitrogen. So, you know, it depends where you are, what you want, and who you're serving, I guess.
Okay, so the take-home message is that it does depend, and the take-home message is that I think someone said earlier, Mike, that it's about understanding the mechanisms and the processes, and that helps us make decisions. We're running out of time. I want to give Nina the floor to wrap up, but I just want to, yes, hello.
Sorry, just to let you know, there's one of the members of the audience has had their hand up for a little while, so maybe.
Yeah, I don't see that, but let's go over then. Who's that? Who's this? Is it Pradeep?
I think it was Pradeep.
Pradeep. So if I don't see the hands, I just see the chat within the host. So Pradeep, if you want to make your point, but I would encourage you to make it quickly and sharply so that people are clear what your opinion is. That would be, maybe we can give Pradeep the floor.
Yeah, he's just coming.
And then I want to close.
Hello.
Hi, Pradeep.
Is it audible?
Yes, we hear you.
Is it? It's okay. Thank you so much. But I'm giving the few examples. This is my name Pradeep. I work with an organization called Udyam. I based at Odisha. It's a part of the coastal Bay of the Bengal, India. And it's looking at this, the whole demographic dividend. I can say it's a dividend. There are so many lakes, reservoirs, and called Ramsagar, Sitasagar. It's less than lake and bigger than a tank. And it has managed by the community. So it was once upon a time this lifeline. And it's navigation, irrigation, flood management, drought management, and it's looking at its entire whole gamut of community engagement towards livelihood. Gradually, these are all the big reservoirs, even Hussain Sagar in Hyderabad, and there are so many talabs. There are bigger than talabs. So it has now the area that has become very much synced, and it's polluted. It has become one of the drainage, and it's urban flood system that has squeezed also right now because there is encroachment, and it's plastic pollution. It is so rampant. This is one of the negative, but its positive aspect is that it was a lifeline. Pisciculture, agriculture, crop diversity, fish diversity, animal dependent. There are so many cultural practices that was there. So it needs right now this community engagement, and it's in investment to renovate all the things. So that because the way we are talking this water scarcity, maybe it is Cape Town or Bangalore or this Hyderabad or this Chennai. So it can provide this quality water, and it's provided so many economy and ecology towards sustainability. I have to, both plus and minus are there, and I want to highlight that how quality will be maintained towards quantity and quality both for a quick service delivery.
Okay,
this is just thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and again, this touches on the trade-off question, doesn't it? So thanks for sharing that. Now I'm going to just finish. There was a request to put the poll up. That is available, I think, Anam, now, is that right? And whilst the poll is there and people are perhaps considering it, I want to just finish. First of all, I want to thank everybody for participating.